In tonight's headlines, Chief Executive John Lee urges civil servants to lead by example and vote in next week's district council elections. At least 4 people are killed after an explosion rocks a Catholic mosque in the southern Philippines. And in France, a tourist is stabbed to death by a radical Islamist on the streets of Paris.
With just 1 week to go before Hong Kongers head to the polls to pick their district councillors, top officials and heads of disciplinary forces gathered in Wan Chai to drum up support for the elections. Civil servants and their families turned up at the fun day at Queen Elizabeth Stadium. Children were pampered with game booths, while a string of performances were offered on stage, including a demonstration of customs detector dogs. As well as the police band performing the national anthem. But even the free entertainment couldn't draw a large turnout, as plenty of seats were vacant.
公務員係有責任去支持同埋落實。
In his speech, Chief Executive John Lee reminded civil servants of their responsibility to support government policies, including the electoral reform. Lam Chi-wai, spokesman of the rank-and-file Police Officers Union, was pleased to see thousands of people showing up today. The government is going all out to mobilize voters after the Legislative Council polls 2 years ago saw the lowest turnout in history. The Social Welfare Department is offering each elderly home up to $20,000 so they can arrange transport and workers for senior citizens to head to polling stations. Maisie Mock, Cable News. Without naming names, former Transport and Housing Secretary Anthony Cheung warned people against linking matters they did not like to national security. Now an advisor at Education University's Department of Social Sciences and Policy Studies, Cheung said it was out of line that some claimed the gay games last month posed a national security threat. Several lawmakers had voiced their opposition to the event, with Junius Ho even saying the promotion of gay rights amounted to subversion of traditional Chinese family values. It is normal for society to have different opinions about homosexuality, Cheung said, but certain matters have nothing to do with the law. He acknowledged the need to restore order after the social unrest in 2019, but that doesn't mean stifling all opposing voices.
In any transition from a rather extreme situation to the other direction, there is always the risk of going to the other extreme. So that's why I said we have to be careful. And the reference to not being too narrow or extremist, this is a phrase used by central government officials when talking about Hong Kong some decades ago.
He also felt the government needs to do more to counter the negative publicity in Western media.
Now, some of the criticisms about Hong Kong may not be entirely fair, but it is up to us in Hong Kong, whether in government, in business, in the community, to demonstrate that Hong Kong remains a very vibrant city, that we are still reaching out to the world.
Authorities should not be afraid of criticisms and allow the media to report not only positive aspects of Hong Kong, but also the negative side, he said. Maisie Mock, Cable News.
At least 4 people, 3 of them women, were killed after a bomb ripped through a university gymnasium in southern Mindanao province. There were chaotic scenes outside the venue in Marawi City, which was filled by Christians attending Sunday Mass at the time of the attack. First responders carried the injured out on chairs and placed them onto motor rickshaws bound for hospitals. Many of the more than 50 people injured by the explosion were bleeding when they were carried out. General Romeo Bronner, chief of the Philippine Armed Forces, said the blast most likely was a retaliatory attack after 11 members of a terrorist group were killed in a shootout with the army yesterday in the nearby region. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. condemned the heinous act, blaming it on foreign terrorists. Marawi witnessed a 5-month-long siege in 2017 when terrorists took the city hostage. More than 1,500 people, including terrorists, civilians and army personnel, were killed in a subsequent operation to liberate the city. Sachin Katwi, Cable News.
Police in Paris have arrested a man after he stabbed a tourist to death in a seemingly unprovoked attack near the Eiffel Tower. Officers cordoned off the area around Bihakem Bridge, which is usually packed with tourists on weekend evenings. The assailant allegedly approached a couple on the street before fatally stabbing the man, a 23-year-old German national. As the attacker fled to the other side of the river Seine, he wounded 2 more passers-by with a hammer. He was eventually subdued by police officers with a taser. Briefing the press moments after asking the public to avoid the area over social media, Interior Minister Johod Dominan confirmed the man was known to security services. The 26-year-old was described as a radical Islamist and was being treated for mental illness. He had shouted Allahu Akbar, or God is great in Arabic, before being arrested, Dominan added. The suspect, who lived with his parents in a neighborhood south of Paris, told police he was upset about the situation in Gaza and fed up with seeing so many Muslims dying in Afghanistan and Palestine. Born in France, the attacker served 4 years in prison in 2016 for planning a separate attack. European security officials have recently warned of the growing risk of attacks by Islamists radicalized by the conflict in Gaza. Surveillance has been stepped up in countries including Britain, Germany and France. Raymond Cable News. For the 3rd day since a week-long ceasefire broke down, Israel has bombed dozens of targets in southern Gaza. Residents in Hamad city were seen fleeing a block of residential buildings, which were hit by Israeli airstrikes. The upmarket housing development was funded by Qatar and was only inaugurated in 2016. The first batch of flats were allocated to Palestinians, whose homes were destroyed in the war between Israel and Hamas 2 years ago. With the buildings reduced to rubble, many have become homeless again. Gaza officials said at least 200 Palestinians have been killed since the fighting resumed on Friday. Many of them were children, including Muhammad, who succumbed to injuries from an airstrike. His brother Saeed broke down in tears as he recalled how their neighborhood was bombed. But a senior Israeli official claimed the civilians had been properly warned and given ample time to evacuate ahead of any military offensive. Mark Regev also mentioned the idea of setting up a buffer zone within Gaza when the conflict is over.
That is not Israel taking territory from Gaza, on the contrary. That is creating security zones where you have a special situation on the ground which limits the ability of people to enter Israel to kill our people. We have no intention to occupy the Gaza Strip. We don't want to rule the Gaza Strip.
Israel's latest offensive came amid warnings by its allies, including the United States, to minimize civilian casualties. For now, such calls seem to have fallen on deaf ears. Raymond Yan, Cable News.
Over 2,000 foreigners arrived in China without a visa on Friday, the first day when a visa-free policy was extended to residents of France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, and Malaysia. Half of those visitors were from Malaysia, according to the National Immigration Administration. Inbound visitors from France surged 52% compared to the previous day, the most notable jump among the 6 countries. They can stay in China for up to 15 days per visit. There are now calls for Beijing to further extend the arrangement to more foreign nationals and lure foreign investors. The first batch of beneficiaries had nothing but praise.
I'm from Italy and I live in Germany, and my wife's Chinese, and when I travel to China I have to do the visa and whatnot. It's a long process, and having this 2 weeks policy is really good because it can facilitate the exchange, it can make it easier to go holiday or to go to visit the relatives.
I have a Chinese girlfriend, so it facilitates anytime we want to go there together. We don't need to plan with three months ahead. So yeah, it makes everything so much easier.